What's up guys, Chris here again with another Eden Zero manga chapter review, and I gotta say, this one might actually be just as good, if not better, than last week's chapter. And last week's chapter had a lot of material, so I'm honestly excited about the progression of the story, and even Shiki as a character, as we do get to see more of him, and potential matchups for the 6 and the rest of the main cast. We also get an update on Witch, and her position in all this, and her location, as well as more reasons for us to hate Shura's guts, and just can't wait for Shiki to show up and punch him right in his stupid face. But with all that said and done, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really helps. Also, don't forget to support me on Patreon and Ko-fi if you guys want to help these videos come out a lot sooner. And even if you want particular videos made, I have a tier up on Patreon that actually gives you guys a priority on new anime or manga first impressions and reviews that I can end up doing. But if you want those done faster, you can donate them directly on Ko-fi, and the particular amount for that video review will be revealed to you guys at some point if you end up asking me personally through Ko-fi or on Twitter, which is @TheGreekWeeb. So I'll probably leave a link down below as well to all my social medias if you just want to message me, if you just want to at me at a particular series you'd like me to talk about in the future, and I'll give you an idea of how much it'll cost for that video to be made, as I do want this Patreon and Ko-fi thing to get off the ground along with the channel. That way it could help me, reach some sort of financial stability, so you can get some good amount of cash from this to make YouTube like a part-time job or something like that, as well as help pay the editors that help me make these videos possible, because they're really doing an awesome job and I can't thank them enough for all they're doing. So I do want to help make sure that I can pay them very quickly without any real delays. So if you can help, please do. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. In last week's chapter, we actually got to see what happened to Shiki after that huge ass explosion, revealing that all the robots that Shura had planted in that area actually piled up on top of Shiki to protect him. And they were all like, "Don't be sad, you're a good guy, we were doomed to die anyway," and that they didn't even want to die. And Shiki was kind of crying for them, so that's nice that how help showing how kind-hearted Shiki really is. And then they go back to the Eden Zero and see Hermit and Sister practically destroyed by Shura, as they essentially could not fight back against them due to how strong his gravity was. And it was revealed that he stole Witch. We also got to the conclusion of Homura and Milani's fight, and the reveal that Milani is actually very angry and scared of Shura, as the old robot from the beginning of this arc was actually someone that she considered a grandfather, considered family, and she was crying after her defeat and knew that what Shura was doing was wrong, but she was just too scared to do anything. And that was pretty much everything that happened last chapter, and it was a pretty good chapter, I have to admit. But this week, I liked this week as well. It was honestly really good. So let's get started right away. Chapter 147, Rage, Fear, and Grief. And boy, does this describe this chapter very well. So we start off at the Eden Zero in the infirmary, where Sister and Hermit are being healed by the machines over there that Sister herself created. Choboko, I believe her name is. No, it's Couchpo, which is hilarious. There was actually an info card right at the beginning of this chapter. I can't believe I've said the name wrong. But anyway, she says that the injuries that they sustained are not life-threatening and that they can be repaired from the damage. Shiki is writhing in anger, trying to hold it in, saying, "Where did they take Witch?" as Jin is on the computer trying to find Witch's life signature. Kling contacts Jin asking what's going on at the Eden Zero and if something happened. Jin says kind of, but he'll tell her later, asking how she is. As it's actually going very, very well on their side, since it's not even much of a challenge. Her and Laguna are actually doing a very good job, like holding the line and getting rid of all those battleships, as Laguna just says that they're basically just a bunch of unmanned drones, and that it's, at this point, it's target practice. So Jin leaving honestly didn't really affect them at all, so it's nice, and I honestly hope that we get to see these two fight in some capacity once they clear the sky area. Shiki very impatiently asks Jin, "Well?" as he then says he found her, and from what we can see, it is a location inside the dome in the military facility. And based on that fact, he didn't shut off Witch's life signature, and that it's a 10-to-1 chance that it's a trap. Shiki says he doesn't care and that he's going to save her. Jin calmly says, and being the voice of reason, so I'm liking that now Jin's a part of the crew. He can be one of the voices of reason for Shiki, saying that you can't just charge in there without a plan. Shiki yells at him, saying there's no time. He doesn't give a damn about what happens to bots. He referring to Shura, obviously. I think I worded that. I think I translated that wrong. But anyway, Jin just says he can't let Shiki storm right off into the enemy base right through their front door. Wise's team is there also in the basement, and that Shiki doing that will jeopardize their mission. As Shiki turns around, yelling furiously at him, saying to Jin, and you can actually feel that from this panel, "I'm getting Witch back. You stay there. That's an order." So this is actually the first time Shiki, in pure anger, and uses his authority as captain in the most kind of cruel way that he's ever done. Now this isn't cruel, but he's like writhing in anger, and that honestly is really nice for the title of this chapter. As Jin just stands there in silence, as Couchbo just says, "Shiki, is that any way to talk to your friends?" As the reality dawns on him, as he just lowers his head, saying he's sorry. As Couchbo once again says that right now this is hard for all of them, but these are exactly the types of situations where he has to stay calm. And you can tell that Shiki is also ashamed at his behavior right now. He's angry, but he's also ashamed at what he said to Jin, as he was so happy to make Jin his next friend, and he's a part of the crew. So I do kind of like how Shiki is kind of struggling with emotions right now, because usually it's just been happy and angry most of the time, were his default emotions. So I'm liking that he's getting angry and he's struggling with what he should be feeling at this moment. So Jin just ends up telling Shiki what the plan should be. For Shiki to meet with Wise's group underground, and that they'll change the mission to destroying All Ink and rescuing Witch. Shiki agrees, and Couchbo just says she'll stay here to protect the ship along with Jin, and to make sure everything's okay. And I like that this is good because Couchbo was going to be prioritizing healing everyone in the infirmary, as Jin is basically going to be the bodyguard. As I like how they're actually still asking Shiki if he's okay with this plan. Shiki turns around and says, "Yeah, thanks," and he runs off. Couchbo says exactly what I believe everyone said literally a page ago, being like, seeing Shiki like that made her a bit nervous. As Jin just rubs it off as, kids are like that. Then we cut to Witch and her being held captive by Shura, as she regains her consciousness and starts to struggle against the chains, as Shura shows up in front of her, right in his face, being like, "Yo." She's wondering where she is and where Sister and Herman are. Jin is like, "I knocked them around a bit, and they're probably not dead," as he gives his annoying laugh. Jin tries to move and use her abilities to get out of there, but he reaffirms that these are anti-ether restraints, so she won't be able to use any special powers while she's stuck there. As he then just says, you're one well-made android. As his secretary walks in saying, "ID code, Demon King's Fortune Stars Witch, close associate of Ziggy, and she is also known as the Steel Sorceress." As now Shura does something just as scumful as we expect him to do, if not more. He just says, "Steel?" But she's so soft, as he grabs onto Witch's chest. Seriously, again, we need this guy to be punched in the face really hard. Like, seriously. But anyway, he brings his hand back and just says she's almost like a human, as he uses gravity to control a knife and basically toss it into Witch's arm, as she is in pain from getting hit like this. And he says, "It feels pain too. Nice. I'm going to get a lot of fun out of her." How do you like my Shura impression? I think that's kind of how he would talk. So, seriously, what Shura is going to be doing is going to make me want him to be punched in the face so much more and make his defeat so much more satisfying. Mashima, you are doing an amazing job at making this the most hated character in this series. So, thank you for making a character that everybody would want to see punched in the face. But anyway, back to the chapter. As Witch is asking him why he's doing this, and Shura just like, "What? Didn't you know?" To beat Ziggy. As, well, Witch is like, "Beat Ziggy? Why?" As Shura just says, "You know what he did on Foresta. That was his planet." I'm going to be talking from Shura's perspective, that it was his planet, and that was In fact, all the planets in the cosmos are his planets. And he's like, you think I'm gonna stand back and let him act like he owns my cosmos? A lousy bot like him, as he throws the knife right into Witch's gut, from what I can see. And he says, you need to learn not to disobey your human overlords. As I like Witch is just staring at just anger and disgust at him. Much to what everyone reading is going to be feeling. So I am honestly getting a bit of something that happened in Fairy Tail. Remember that the Tartarus arc where Urza was captured by one of the members of Tartarus and was subjected to torture on hours on end? This is basically that moment. Witch is going to be tortured by Shura as much as he wants until Shiki makes it there. So I can only imagine how she's going to end up and look by the time Shiki gets there. And seeing Shiki's like full on rage at the sight of Witch like tortured and broken. Similar to how Hermit and Sister were. But maybe even more. Right after the moment that will make us really, really want to not see what happens to Witch and just want Shiki to get there in time, we cut into the control room where one of the oceans is watching over everything in Shura's place, and we get some confirmation and stuff like that on things that are going on in the battlefield. Stuff like Eraser being charging his ether right on the ship that he's on, as he can only fire it at certain amounts of time. The Eden Zero has successfully been brought to a halt. You know, situational stuff like that. As the Oceans member that is currently there is like, a halt? Then they're not really trying. Obviously, they're just a diversion. As the Rooster person next to her, so that was honestly a bit of, so, you know, I'm not gonna bother dissecting that. Just says yes, and she says now we know, but they're still playing along. Rooster Man says why, and the Oceans just says because Shura wants to play, and that maybe he picked up a new toy. And I like how we're getting the conversations of all the members of the control room, like literally in disbelief at like, you know, Prince Shura wants to play at a critical time like this. Plus he sends us a punk kid to replace our old commander, you know, stuff like that. And as well as being, you know, like being like starstruck by the old Oceans and like how they were also rugged and tough. But then she picks up her card and says, hey now old man, if you underestimate the younger generation, you'll get hurt. As we then cut back to Rebecca's team, as it's just her, Wise, Muscoy, Pino, and Happy. So at this point, it's highly possible that this is during the exact same moment that Homer's fight is about to end, so she probably won't join them at this moment, because maybe Milani is going to send her back to the mirror. So we just don't know when Homer is going to rejoin them, because at this point in this area, they're no longer around the mirrors. So Homer will catch up eventually, but right now it's just them. Everyone's wondering what's going on. They're pretty far from the designated route, and that they hope Homer is okay. And Pino actually confirms that she's picking up a life signature and that it's Homura. So this is obviously right after the fight, so it's highly possible that she was let out of the mirror at this moment. Muscoy is still cosplaying and impersonating Shiki, is like, we'll get her back in the ring because we're friends. And Wise is still having none of it, telling him to knock it off already. And he says, if you don't quit, and then all of a sudden, he starts acting completely out of character. Like, he's like, I'm gonna be so scared. Please stop. You're scaring me. Much to Muscoy's like, what? And he crawls down on the ground, close to the fetal position, saying like, I'm scared. As Pino and Happy are wondering what's going on. And then Rebecca starts to sniffle up and cry. And that is just too sad. And then she starts bawling her eyes out while Wise is just on the ground, like trembling in absolute fear, while everyone's wondering what's going on. And then, walking out of the shadows, someone says that everything he sees will strike fear in his heart, and everything she sees will fill her with grief. So yes, this chapter is very like its name, anger being Shiki, fear being Wise, and grief being Rebecca. As this person walking out says, those are the hypnotic suggestions I gave them. What a shame. Just like that, they're out of commission. As it's revealed that he is one of the Oceans called Naze. Now, real quick, I just want to say this. It appears that his ability is not working on Happy, Pino, and Moscoy, so it's highly possible. So maybe this ether gear ability only works on living organisms or just organic material and not androids. So it could be that these three will have to find a way to win, or Pino will have to use her EMP to cancel out his ether gear in order for Rebecca and Wise to get their senses back long enough to beat him. Or it'll come down to Moscoy to beat this guy. So, yeah, honestly, it'd be cool if Moscoy had some kind of hidden potential or something like that. But we then cut back to the Oceans that is in the control room, being like, because a new generation of Oceans are warriors who can make black white and white black. As we then see her use her ether gear to change the card on the table, and explains that they have the power to tamper with other enemies' ether. And telling them, wait to get a load of Empire ether. It says, you guys can take care of the rest. As she's going off, she wants to play too. And basically taunting them, being like, I'm just a punk kid after all. The show is about to begin as we get her name, Lyra, one of the six. As the chapter ends. So this wasn't an action-heavy chapter. Obviously, this was all just mainly setup, and us showing how Shiki is honestly really getting how Shiki's skin is really crawling based off of Shura's actions. So I am really looking forward to when Shiki comes onto the scene and fights Shura again. But at this point, it's looking like we're going back into the classic shonen arc formula, where everyone's going to be fighting a multitude of enemies. Even the main protagonist might have to fight one of the other members of the six to work their way up to the final boss. So I'm looking forward to see how this is going to play out. This guy's new ether gear ability seems pretty cool in the fact that he can manipulate people's ether and basically give them like different emotions, and they're completely overcome by those particular emotions. So yeah, I'm honestly glad to see how this is going to play out, because the last Ocean had mirror abilities, and now this one seems to have some sort of emotional manipulation. And it's like almost every member of the current Oceans has some sort of ability to mess with another person's ether. So I'm really excited to see all these characters fight it out. But what did you guys think of this chapter? Was it good? Was it bad? What did you think of Shiki's reaction towards Witch being captured and his attitude towards Jin at the beginning of the chapter? What do you think is what do you think is going on with Shura and the torturing of Witch? And finally, what do you think is going to happen with Wise's group as they are going to fight off a member of the Oceans themselves, while Wise and Rebecca are basically out of commission as they're overwhelmed by these incredibly strong emotions that they themselves cannot control? Leave it down in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. And don't forget to check out my Patreon and my Ko-fi accounts to help support the channel, and my social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram at the official on Twitter and Instagram at the Greek Weeb to follow me and get updates on future videos. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.